Cannabis, and he said, yo, L, is that a mic on your arm?
Let me borrow that.
Let me borrow that.
Redman, where the squad at? L, is that a mic on your arm? Let me borrow that.
You didn't take it as a compliment?
Not at that time. I was an egomaniac. Cannabis, he ran into me when my ego was a little, I should have just said, nah, you know. He was like, cause I met him, I saw him outside the studio. He
Right.
said, yo, oh man, I'm gonna get a tattoo just like yours. And I was like, you gotta get your own. But that's how it was.
Right.
I felt like somebody's trying to wear my boxing trunks or something. It was
Right.
like, or you go walk in the locker room and the dude got your cleats on.
Most hip-hop beefs kick off with sneak disses or straight-up tension between rappers who just don't vibe. But with LL Cool J and Cannabis, it started off all love. These two were actually cool with each other. Cool enough to hop in the studio and even drop a track together. So what went down, that flipped everything. LL Cool J was in the studio with Cannabis and DMX. Both were still coming up at the time, not major stars yet. So landing a feature with a rap icon like LL was a major win. They were all working on a track called 4, 3, 2, 1, and it had some heavy hitters on it. Redman, Method Man, and Master P too. This was a big moment. While they were chilling in the studio, Cannabis told LL he really liked the mic tattoo on his arm. He even said he was thinking about getting one himself. But LL wasn't too hype about that. Then Cannabis dropped a line on the track mentioning LL's mic tattoo. Not in a shady way, more like showing love and respect to someone he looked up to. But LL didn't take it that way. Instead of seeing it as a tribute, LL thought the line was a slick diss, especially the part where Cannabis talked about borrowing the mic from his arm. So LL pressed Cannabis to change his verse if he wanted to stay on the track. Cannabis agreed and took the lines out, but then he told LL to switch up his verse too, because LL's bars were clearly throwing shade right back at him, and that's when things started to spiral. LL told Cannabis he'd switch up his verse, but when the song dropped, Cannabis got hit with the truth. LL didn't change a single word. He left those shots in, loud and clear, and it made Cannabis look soft in front of the whole game. What could have been a classic moment between two MCs spitting fire turned into straight betrayal. LL could have just kept it real and changed his lines like he promised, but nah, he played it grimy. Cannabis was sitting there like, hold up, I got played. Imagine if Big Sean told Kendrick to tone down his control verse, but then dropped it anyway. Same kind of situation. People weren't talking about how dope Cannabis was, they were saying he looked weak for getting dissed and staying quiet. And to add insult to injury, Cannabis didn't even get invited to the original video shoot for the track. Cold move. But instead of snapping back right away, Cannabis did something different, and he called LL to talk it out. LL tried to play it cool, saying nobody even knew his lines were about Cannabis, but come on. The streets were already talking. And since Cannabis's original verse had leaked, fans were quick to connect the dots. In hip-hop, your name and respect is everything, and for someone like Cannabis, who was still proving himself, this whole thing nearly crushed his rep. LL and Cannabis had agreed to do a new track together to squash all the talk, but that plan dragged on forever, and Cannabis, he was hesitant, because the same man who said they were cool had already played him once before. Every second that Cannabis stayed quiet made it look worse. Like LL punked him not once, but twice. Cannabis had already waited over 2 months for that feature track to come through, but it was clear LL wasn't gonna follow through. So what did Cannabis do? He snapped back hard.
So, he walked up and he was like, yo, L, yo, your tattoo, man, I like your tattoo, I'm gonna get one like that. I said, nah, homie, you gotta get your own, I didn't understand that, like, mentally, like, I just didn't understand that.
Because you couldn't see what was in my heart. If anything, that should have seemed like something that was probably flattering.
We had that conversation when I went in and heard his bars. He said, is that a mic on your arm? Let me borrow that. And I just I just did not understand.
On March 24th, 1998, Cannabis dropped The Fire, his now legendary diss track, Second Round KO. And if anyone ever doubted Cannabis's skills, this joint shut all that talk down. Back then, this was straight up David versus Goliath. Cannabis hadn't even released his debut album yet, and he was already swinging at the mighty LL Cool J. But yo, Cannabis came with heat and let LL have it. In the track, Cannabis exposed the whole truth, that LL did change his verse after hearing Cannabis's original lines, and that he promised to switch it up, but never did. He even teased the track before it dropped, that during a freestyle session with DMX, Big Pun, and Mos Def, Cannabis wasn't just talking. He was letting the whole world see what was really going down. If second round KO hadn't hit as hard as it did, LL might have brushed it off. But that track was so cold, LL had no choice but to clap back. So on April 28, 1998, LL fired off his response. The Ripper Strikes Back. For anybody still wondering if LL had bars, this diss proved he still had the fire. But for Cannabis, this was a turning point. Just months before, most people barely knew his name. Now, he was the guy who came at LL Cool J so strong, it forced a legend to step back into the booth. Cannabis went all in promoting his diss track. He made sure everybody knew his name, and he wasn't about to let them forget it. With second round KO making waves, the buzz was finally strong enough for him to drop his debut album titled Can I Bust. It hit the streets in September 1998, and yeah, the project was packed with subliminal jabs aimed straight at LL Cool J. Nothing too direct, just little punches sprinkled throughout, letting LL know he wasn't off the hook. After that, things cooled off for a bit. No new disses came out in 1999, but in 2000, while promoting his album GOAT, LL popped back up on MTV's Rap City and threw a few slick bars at Cannabis during his freestyle. Even though Cannabis started the fire, it was his own career that took the hit. LL kept shining and the industry stayed in his corner. Let's keep it real. LL Cool J was the bigger name, the chart topper, the moneymaker. The industry backed the one bringing in the cash. Meanwhile, Cannabis, he got blackballed. The beef seriously derailed his career, and a lot of folks believe he never reached the level he could have. And then LL took it a step further. On the track Back Where I Belong, he threw even more shots at Cannabis and straight up claimed he ended his career. Cannabis fired back one last time on his 2003 album Rip the Jacker with a track called Showtime at the Gallo. He admitted how much the beef had cost him, and that was the final word. But just when everyone thought it was buried for good, LL pulled a move no one saw coming. On December 19, 2014, during a Hot 97 show, he brought Cannabis out on stage, then clowned him by saying, "Yeah, your career is starting again," as he walked off. Brr! After that awkward moment on stage in 2014, fans were left stunned. Was that a peace offering or another slick jab from LL? Cannabis played it cool in the moment, but the damage had already been done. That line, "your career is starting again," felt more like a low blow than a warm welcome. People weren't sure if they had just witnessed a reunion or another round of humiliation in front of a live crowd. Behind the scenes, Cannabis was still doing his thing, dropping underground projects and staying connected to his loyal fan base. But the mainstream, they had already moved on. LL, meanwhile, was thriving. Acting, making music, hosting award shows, the man was everywhere. The gap between their careers had only grown wider. Some fans started calling LL a bully, saying he used his power and fame to shut Cannabis down instead of just letting the bars speak. Others argued Cannabis should have never taken it so personal and just kept grinding. But no matter which side people were on, one thing was clear. This beef had changed the game for both rappers in totally different ways. And even years later, hip-hop heads still bring it up. That whole saga, the verses, the betrayal, the diss tracks, the comeback, it's become one of the most unforgettable rap feuds in history. LL walked away with his legacy untouched, while Cannabis became a cautionary tale of how one wrong move in this industry can flip your whole career upside down. Even now, folks still debate, was LL too harsh? Did Cannabis fold under pressure? Or was it just two lyrical beasts caught in a pride war that went way too far? Either way, this battle left a mark that can't be erased. Years have passed, but the ghost of the LL versus Cannabis feud still lingers in hip-hop conversations, like an old scar that never fully faded. Every now and then, when people talk about top-tier rap beefs, this one always pops up. Not because it ended with a winner, but because it showed how brutal the game can be when ego, respect, and reputation collide. Cannabis never fully recovered in the public eye, but the real ones know. Lyrically, he was a beast. That pen was dangerous. He may not have had the commercial hits or label backing like LL, but his bars, they left a permanent stamp. Second Round KO is still considered one of the hardest diss tracks ever dropped. On the flip side, LL used the whole situation to boost his dominance. He made sure everyone knew, disrespect him and you'll pay the price. He didn't just win in the booth, he won in business, in image, and in longevity. But even with all that success, some folks still question how he handled it. Could he have lifted Cannabis up instead of tearing him down? In a way, this beef became bigger than just two rappers going at it. It turned into a lesson, a reminder that in this game, talent alone ain't enough. You gotta have the right timing, the right allies, and a thick skin. Because once that spotlight hits, any misstep can cost you everything. And while they may have shared a stage years later, there's still a bitter taste in the air. This wasn't just bars and rhymes, it was betrayal, power plays, and a young MC learning the hard way how unforgiving the rap world can be. What really makes the LL versus Cannabis beef stand out is how fast things flipped, from admiration to all-out war. Remember, Cannabis didn't come into this looking for drama. He looked up to LL, saw him as a legend, maybe even a mentor. But in hip-hop, that line between respect and rivalry can vanish in a heartbeat, especially when egos get involved. The craziest part? This all started over a compliment about a tattoo. A mic on LL's arm turned into a mic drop moment for Cannabis's whole career. It wasn't about street beef or personal history, just one misunderstood bar that spiraled into diss records, broken trust, and career-altering fallout. For Cannabis, it felt like he was set up to lose. No major label protection, no radio-friendly image, just raw talent. But raw talent don't always win in this business, especially when the machine is behind your opponent. LL had years in the game, industry connects, and a polished image. Meanwhile, Cannabis was painted as the angry underdog. And in a world where perception is power, that alone put him at a disadvantage. Still, Cannabis never fully backed down. Even though the industry doors slammed shut, he kept rapping, kept creating, and kept showing up for the fans that never turned their backs. He became a symbol of what it means to stand firm, even after taking major losses. But ask anyone who knows their rap history, this beef wasn't just about bars. It exposed the politics of the music industry, the way veteran status can crush a rising star, and how even the strongest lyricists can get caught in a game that's way bigger than rap. And then came the Drink Champs moment. NORE got on the mic and said what a lot of folks were thinking. Give it up for LL for crushing Cannabis's career. Wild, right? But let's be real. This wasn't just about who had better bars. Cannabis lost the popularity war. LL didn't just win a battle. He flexed his industry power. One man's ego turned into another man's downfall. People keep underestimating LL when it comes to diss tracks, but stop sleeping. His pen is deadly when he wants it to be. If you rocked with this breakdown, hit that like, comment, share, and subscribe. And let us know who really won this battle.